today's little bit of experiment, because I'm recording that video with a new device. Please let me know if you see the improvement in quality or it's just as usual. Today's topic, vanes for the barebow arrows. I've been talking about the arrows, the shafts themselves in a previous video, and according to the numbers, you like that video a lot. So I decided to move on with the discussions about the equipment. So if we cover the shafts, the vanes are natural step forward. One very important thing, I'm going to be showing you the examples of various vanes that I used or planning to use or so on, and they are stick to the various shafts. Don't think about it. I'm just showing it as a, stick. So don't combine those two things at the same time. So barebow is a division which is extremely wide. You can shoot 50 meters target. You can shoot indoor on 18 meters. Field archery, 3D archery. All versions of archery that are out there can be shot in a barebow division, and that's what I love about that. There is very small number of things that are limiting you, but that is causing some difficulties when it comes to the equipment, because various arrows are used for various purposes. Of course, you can use one set of arrows for everything, but when you are reaching that level of high performance and you're fighting against the best, you have a problem, because if something is good for everything, it's good for nothing. So various sets should be prepared for various tournaments, various versions of archery, and that's what I'm slowly going toward with my I need to say collection, unfortunately, of the equipment. And I actually showed that little bit in a previous video when I showed you that I'm using Victory VAPs. Both, or actually I used Victory VAPs both for indoor, so 18 meters, and 3D field archery. Now I'm changing that and slowly going toward having Skylon 4X for the indoor, but the vanes are still the same. So you can mix it up. The general rule what I'm sticking to is the longer the distance I need to shoot, the smaller the vane should be. Smaller means not only the length and the height, but also the weight. So let's start with the indoor archery. Indoor is a very weird competition because the distance is fixed, it's not very far, there is no wind, theoretically there is no sun, which affects the humidity and the temperature of the air, although there are some lighting in the arenas usually. It would be weird to shoot in the dark, but what do you want? You want the thickest arrow, which I mentioned previously, but also you want the biggest vane which you can have to make that arrow be stabilized as soon as possible. Why? Because the distance is not very far. It doesn't matter, the arrow will be slow. you want to make sure that it's going to be stabilized and it's going to go exactly where you want this arrow to go. So I know a lot of archers which are using natural feathers like this, you see. Of course, they are natural only by name because they're actually made of plastic, but still they are using them. They are long. This actually is 5 inches long, so you can see they are very high. And of course, because of the material, they're heavy. But it's not a bad idea. Of course, I don't really like it from my own perspective. Why? Because when you're shooting indoor, very often you're hitting arrow into another arrow, and they start to look like this. Of course, you can smooth it a little bit, but with time, you're not going to be able to repair it that easily. So, what I'm using for indoor, I'm actually using the VANES from Gazpro, which is my favorite producer of vanes, which are called indoor. Surprise, surprise. Those are 4 inches long, specially designed for indoor. See, little bit shorter and much lower, but still they are heavy. So they are giving me that quick stabilization. And in general, I prefer the spin vanes rather than the one which you are sticking on the arrows. Why? Because I'm lazy and it's much easier for me and faster to put them on the shafts. What can be your other choice? You can use something like this. This is Boeing ice vanes. I don't know how is it going in your country, but actually you can see those vanes very often in compound division in Poland. There is lighter version, little bit more delicate. It's called Face, if I remember. Sorry, Pulse. They look the same. The difference is here. There will be a different logo. They are nice. I like them. They are very durable. This is my old set, which served me well for a couple of months. Now it's used by beloved girlfriend in her barebow setup. And she is using those, not for indoor actually. She's using those for 3D archery. Why? Because 3D for barebow, according to World Archery rules, the distance, the maximum distance will not be very long. It's around like 30 meters tops. So it's not very far, and they are giving you that quick stabilization. So you have if you have a close target like 15 meters, you're gonna have that quick stabilization. And of course, they are gonna slow down the arrow, but most of the 3D and field tournaments are actually happening in, I would say, fairly covered areas, so like forest, maybe not very thick one, but still. So the wind is not that big of an issue. Why I'm saying that? Because if you have that high, big vane and the wind blows, tends to wobble the arrow side to side because it's that big one. But they serve the purpose, and this is something which I always have somewhere in the back of my head, because actually it's not a problem to hit that bullseye. Problem is to do it constantly. So I want to minimize the things that are affecting my shot. As I said, this is my last set, previous set I would say. From those vanes, I actually moved to this one. So I jumped from like one end to the other end of the spectrum. See, those are tiny. Those are tiny. You see, they are like half of the length almost, because those are, if I remember correctly, a little bit under 4 inches, if I remember correctly, something like that. Those, on the other hand, are 2.2, a little bit over 2 inches long. So those are tiny, and I like them a lot. I used them on the European Championships this year, but I realized that why? Because that were field championships, so there was a lot of targets which are kind of far, like 40 or 50 meters plus. And I wanted to have that long distance capabilities. But after those championships, I decided, you know what, there's not so many targets that far away. And I actually listened to the opinion of one of the best verbal archers out there, Giuseppe Seimandi. If you're watching that video, hello mate. And find a sweet spot between those two spectrums. And this is also Gazpro vane. They are 2.8 inches long. I'm not sure if you can see it correctly because everything is green. So green on green with green and a little bit of green on top. But they are similar. They are also not very high, as you can see. They're a little bit shorter, a little bit different in terms of the shape, but still on the same side. They are fairly light and very short. And those are the one which, this is my set for 3D and field archery for the next season. And I'm gonna keep with that. Now, we had indoor, we had 3D and field. Now let's move to that 50 meters target tournaments. Honestly, I don't like them. For me, it's kind of a maybe not boring, but I cannot keep with the repetitiveness of round after round after round. Nothing changes. You're shooting the same target over and over, and I have problems actually keeping focused the whole time. But still, if you want to be good, you have to shoot everything. Yeah. So my current setup for 50 meters is that. I actually discussed those arrows on the last video. They are Skylon Presium arrows, so very thin one. Currently with Spinwing Vanes and Skylon Nox. But that's temporary because in spring, maybe in March, when I'm gonna have some time, I'm gonna be swapping those to these ones because I want to have Gazpro on all of my arrow sets. But you can see that they are very similar, and this is what you want for that 50 meters shoot. Why? You want arrows being like pulled by the point, so it should be fairly heavy in comparison to the rest of the arrows. So the force will pull the arrow and the rear will be just simply stabilized. So the arrow will go fairly straight, not like this, but like this. Yeah. And as I said, you want to have them short. Why? To be light. That's the first thing. Second thing, you want to have them not so tall. So the wind, which would be blowing from one or another side, would not have a what's the word? I'm struggling. Field to hit on. That's why on the top 50 meters shoots we are using those very, very thin arrows. See, this is the one. The lower one is the one which I'm using for 50 meters. The upper one is for 3D and field. Yeah, and this is the caliber which I have for indoor. Same bows. Yeah. Why? Because of the wind. So the arrows will not be wobbling all the time. So the same thing goes to vanes. We don't want to vanes causing that movement by the fact that wind is hitting them. So this would be a good idea. This one would be worse. And if you decide for some reason that you want to shoot those 50 meters with such a vanes, you're going to have a lot of trouble. Why? Because every time wind blows, that's going to be moving your arrow side to side. Also, you're going to have a problem because those vanes will cause your arrow to go slowly, much more slowly than, for example, this one. And that means that you're going to have less force. So every wind blow will be more likely to deviate your arrow from the point where it was shot toward. As I said, I prefer spin vanes for various reasons, mainly because I'm lazy. But at some point I was using the normal ones because there are vanes like that. See, this is one of my experiments from the spring last year. See, very similar size to spin vanes which I was talking about, but they are made of plastic, they are glued on, and they work fine. If you prefer those, feel free to use them. Their sky's the limit. And the thing that I really love about the archery is the fact that there is no best setup, there is no best riser, there are no best limbs, there are no best arrows, and so on, nothing like that. When you are in that, you're talking about the quality, and you're taking those things from top quality manufacturers. The differences are so minimal that you can make a decision based on your personal preferences. I don't know, if you prefer the color, you can pick by a color, doesn't matter. What is important, that your setup works together perfectly. If you're gonna, so you have to tune that bow, you have to tune the arrows to that bow, and if every piece in that puzzle fits, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all depending on you, on your skill, on your experience, and so on, not on the fact that you have one or another, let's say, bow. So use whatever you want to, but remember about those general rules. At least according to me. Shorter the distance, bigger the vane. Shorter the distance, bigger the shaft, thicker the shaft. That's like general rule which I'm holding on to, and for now I would say that I'm getting a pretty decent results out of it. Also, I've watched a lot of top world archers, and I'm pretty sure that they have the same idea. So about the vanes, that's going to be it for today. I hope you liked that video. I see you next time and catch you on the flip side. Bye.